want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
We are the Madmen of Masculinity.
Your home for healthy masculinity. We're just real men having real conversations for you. Good evening, Madmen Mafia.
Boom, I'm Kirk M. Samuels.
And I am Jason B. Kendrick.
And we are the Madmen of Masculinity.
That's right. We're just real men having real conversations for you. Right
If you
here on
know
your home for
you-
healthy masculinity. Yeah.
That's right, man. If you know, you know. We were just talking about man, I feel like I need to donate some blood, man. My red blood cell count is high. Guys that know. Sometimes, you know, certain things you gotta
Get that
you
teaspoon.
gotta go offload some blood every now and then. Because when you just so thick and juicy, you be making extra blood and extra blood cells. And so I need to thin it out a little bit. I need to go do my thing.
Be a donator. Donate.
Yeah.
Sharing is caring and all that good stuff.
And then I made an appointment at Vitalent, and she's like, "Oh, because you donating between these days and these days, you get a $20 whatever card and a gift card and a T-shirt." And I was like, "Okay, cool."
Right on.
She said, "Are you bringing anybody else?" I said, "No." Well, if you have anybody else you can bring with you, bring somebody. Man.
I go donate, but I'm AB positive, which means I'm like the universal recipient, but I can only give to AB positive people. So I don't.
Word.
I don't know. I guess I'm just
O positive.
Oh,
I'm O positive, man.
They
need
O
mine.
positive and O negative. They need those.
They need mine, man. I'm a rare commodity up in this joint, man. Know what I'm saying?
What you keep telling
and
yourself,
this ain't got nothing to do with what we talking about right now. We just shooting the breeze because that's just what you do.
What are we talking about? This is your subject.
Well, I don't know where it came from, but I was just sitting here earlier and I was thinking, especially like in this phase of life, as I look back on my life and as I look forward on my life, there's one thing that's been pretty consistent throughout my life, and that is transition.
Mm-hmm.
That is the process. I don't even know what the right word is, but that is the fact that for all of us, probably all the time, and we don't necessarily realize it, but we're generally transitioning from one thing to the next in life, from something into something else. Like time doesn't stand still, neither does life, and neither do we. In terms of if nothing else, you'll never be this young again, and you've never been this old before. So so life is just about transitions, man, and in some kind of ways, it's how we manage these transitions that determines how we manage life.
Yeah, it's a great point. Because I mean, everything's transition. I mean, walking is controlled falling. You're transitioning from one foot to the other as you fall forward. I mean, life is just from one stage to the next, and then there's different phases within each stage. I mean, we talk about the 4 stages of learning: unconscious incompetence. I don't know what I don't know. Conscious incompetence. Now I know I don't know that. And conscious competence. I have to learn this new skill. I have to practice it until it becomes muscle memory. Then it's unconscious incompetence or unconscious competence. So you don't even have to think about it. But that is just part and parcel of life. And I think to your point, a lot of us, especially as we get older, sometimes I think we fight that because our brains and our minds still say we're 18, but our bodies and everything else says, you might want to check yourself. You're not 18 anymore. And so we tend to resist the transitions of life. We tend to resist these phases and the cycles and all the things that go along with it. We just tend to kind of go fight against it instead of maybe accepting it and making it, trying to ride that wave versus fighting against it and realizing that transition isn't bad. I mean, the one constant in life is change, which means transition from one thing to the next. Every ending is a beginning. Every, beginning leads to an ending. I mean, that's just the facts of life.
Yeah. And I think transition, the notion, the idea, the concept of transition, it is a fact of life, and we fight that. A lot of us, I can think back to a time where I felt like when my son was graduating high school, or getting to the end of high school, he was doing a lot of things to almost sabotage school and that kind of stuff. Not like illegal or not like that, just in terms of like school and I could tell that he was looking forward to now what he was looking forward to the next thing and that's scary when you start thinking about that next thing, especially when the next thing is the unknown thing. And a lot of times, the idea of transition is going from the known through something into the unknown because we don't know where we're going into. We know where we came from, and so it's the let going of what's secure and the accepting of what's unsure. But that's the scary part. It's a lot easier said than done. I've been in situations where it's like, man, I don't want to transition. I don't want to go to that. I'm a lot like where I'm at. But unfortunately, we don't get to do that in this life. And so like I said, how we manage transition, how we manage that process, that clutch type situation is important, especially as men.
Yeah, I like that you use the clutch analogy because I mean it's just shifting gears. I mean, you have to disengage and re-engage a higher gear to go faster. And you're right that the fear of the unknown is what I think most people are resisting instead of being like the open, innocent child mindset or this new student mindset where you're excited to learn something. You fall into the fear of the unknown. Well, I don't know what's going to happen. And I've spent a lot of my life like that, just like, well, I really want to do this thing, but I don't know how that's going to happen. And I grew up so much hearing, you got to know what you're doing, what's your plan. Nobody plans to fail. They just fail to plan. And it's like, well, this is a new thing. I'm not even sure what to plan for. I'm not even sure how to go. And you hear it all the time and it sounds kind of rote, but it's like, just take the first step. You don't have to know the whole staircase. You just got to take the first step and then the next step and then the next step. But it is scary. It's a scary thing. Although you can change your mindset or you can at least attempt to go, well, I feel afraid, but fear and excitement are the same chemically in the body. So if I just shift my mindset to I'm excited for this new thing, I'm excited for the unknown, I'm excited because the known becomes so just routine that I think a lot of times when we don't have enough unknown, we don't have enough new, we don't have enough excitement, it takes away from our enjoyment of life. It takes away from the fulfillment of life. And if we're resisting because I've been doing this so long, A, B, and C, I've done this, this, and this, and I'm just used to being this way. And then we're afraid to try something new. Well, you don't know because you don't know, and it is unknown. You don't realize how good that new thing could be. And a lot of times when we want to try something new, we can hold ourselves back by being afraid of that transition, being afraid of the unknown, and not taking it on more as a challenge or as a good thing. Because in my life, a lot of times where things happen that should be negative or you might think are negative, being let go from a job or moving or something like that. I mean, when those things happen, you're not gonna be able to do anything about it. Really, it's happening. So it's better for you to say, well, now I'm excited because I don't know what's gonna happen. This is exciting versus I'm so afraid and digging your heels in and trying to stay where you're at.
I remember I remember distinct moments in life. For example, when my first daughter was born, or my oldest daughter was born, and that was the moment I became a father, and it was an oh crap kind of moment. I remember, um, I remember job changes, when it's like a oh crap. I remember, that feeling of getting laid off from a job, and it's like all of us, you go to work like any other day, and next thing oh crap, now life has changed, and I remember opportunities or times when there was a relocation from one thing to the next. You know, all these different times, all these different instances, you know, can bring us to the moment where it's like a oh crap kind of thing. And sometimes you get the gift of knowing that it's coming. Um, when a child is born, you know that it's going to be born, right? You don't get pregnant today and at some point, you have the baby. Like it takes a while, it's coming, you prepare and all that kind of stuff. Something like a layoff or maybe even the loss of a loved one, unexpectedly, quickly kind of thing. Sometimes you don't get the gift or the blessing of knowing that it's coming. But in any case, you find yourself in that moment of, oh crap, now what? And and so that transition process can be a long drawn out one, or it can be like a moment, an instant. And either way, whenever you have that crossover moment of one to the next, if you look at it like an opportunity, then you're more likely to be able to treat it with some level of excitement. What's the next thing? And when you back in the day when they had clutches, in cars, it was like, in order to get where you're going, you know, in order to get where you're going, you have to get to the next level or the next gear or the next thing to prepare you for this journey. You can't drive on the highway in first gear. It just doesn't happen that way. So in order to get you in the right place, you have to transition to whatever that next thing is to get you there. And so when you go through that clutch, that transition kind of moment, you have to look at it with the spirit of optimism, with the spirit of hope, with the spirit of expectation that maybe, just maybe, there could be some good that comes out of this, or just maybe, I'll be better off. I mean, I've been laid off from multiple jobs. So I remember the last time it happened, it was like, okay, here we go. I mean, I really took it way better than the first time. It was devastating the first time. The last time it happened to me, it was like, okay, here we go. I know something's gonna get me to another level where I need to be in this process.
Yeah, and it brings up a good point that experience of transition helps with the next transition. Experience of change helps with the next change. And so the first time's always going to be hard because it's a new thing. You don't know, you haven't been through that process before. But then that's the other part of it is I think a lot of people resist change because they're resistant to what comes with it. Because there's always going to be grief, there's going to be fear, there's going to be sadness. Like you get laid off from a job, and then you're like, oh crap, now what? And so you almost have to grieve that loss of the job and grieve that loss of that security, grieve the loss of feeling like, I'm set to get to that point of acceptance. And then when you accept it, then you can turn it into excitement. I was like, okay, well, can't do anything about that. And that comes back to the old saying of, take care of what you can take care of and worry about what you can actually control and let everything else go. There's your business, there's other people's business, there's God's business. And your business is to deal with your transitions and your changes and make it the best transition you can have. But when we resist it, and that's one of the things I learned through side seminars, it's the 3 R's, which we get into daily and a lot of times, and sometimes multiple times a day, where something happens, somebody says something, some occurrence happens, which at its base has no meaning. You give everything all the meaning it has for you, but something happens that you don't like, and so you resist it. And then the more you resist it, then you generate resentment. And if that resentment builds to a point where then all of a sudden you want to take revenge on somebody who, or some, thing, a business, a person, a institution, because you feel resistance, resentment, and then you want to take revenge on that thing because you're not willing to accept what is. So you're in resistance to reality, basically. And I see so many people going through transitions in life, making it so much harder because they just won't accept that this has happened. This is your reality now. And the best thing for you is to accept it, go through your process, and then turn it around into something positive. Look at it as like it's a new opportunity. Instead of something bad happening to you, it's just a new opportunity for change. And it's going to happen anyway. And it's always interesting to watch people get in such resistance, such resentment, and they try to take revenge on something that is in the past. It's already happened. And now you're basically holding yourself back. It's like, holding a grudge against somebody doesn't hurt them at all. It only hurts you. Holding anger against somebody doesn't hurt them. It hurts you. It's the same with transition. When you are resistant to it and you're getting resentment and you're building up these negative emotions of this thing that's already happened. It's in the past, usually by the time you get to that stage. So it's being willing to maybe generate a little innocence and the childlike demeanor of, oh, what's next? What's the new thing? It's Christmas. This is an opportunity. But we get so caught up in the, oh, no, I didn't. And it's always our mindset. We just go, I didn't want this to happen, or I think this is a bad thing. And you can turn anything, any occurrence, any event into a good thing just by a shift of your mindset. But we get so stuck in the whatever's happening is not what I want. Well, sweetheart, it's happening anyway. So you have two choices. You can resist it, or you can try to catch that wave and ride with it and find some excitement.
Yeah, you gotta. I love the idea, the concept of grieving what was. Grieving first gear in order to accept second gear, and so forth and so on. But allowing yourself to grieve that loss, because you can't really appreciate or be optimistic about the future until you can grieve and accept your past. You can't hold on. Tarzan can't swing through the jungle holding on to two vines, right? So you gotta be able to. There is a moment where you can have two vines in your hands, but at some point you got to be willing to let go of the other one in order to allow you the momentum in life to swing you forward to in the direction that the next one is going in. But you got to be willing to grieve that thing that you got to let go in order to accept and embrace that thing that's coming next. And a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people struggle with, even to the point of sabotaging the next thing, even to the point of doing something to mess up the next thing. I know a lot of guys who are working their way through the addiction journey, for example. And I know a lot of guys living in sober living homes, and these guys are in transition, trying to go from addiction to sobriety. And you have this tension in the middle where you kind of do have your hands on two branches at the same time. And the tough choice is, which one you got to let go of one of them, because they're pulling you in two different directions. So which one are you going to let go of? And that is going to dictate the direction that you go in life. That's going to dictate, your momentum or lack thereof. Do you swing back to where you used to be? Is that really where you want to be? Is that where you are meant to be? Or are you willing to let go of that other thing, who you were, what you were, everything that you thought was normal and and just the norm, and go into the land of the unknown, which is scary, but the land of the unknown, could be ripe with milk and honey, and it could be everything that you've ever been looking forward to. And I can tell you, that was the case in my addiction journey, man. It's like, until I was willing to let go of a lot of stuff, I would never be able to experience a lot of the great things that I can experience now, because the two of them, they can't exist simultaneously. First and second gear can't be engaged at the same time. So you got to be willing to choose one versus the other, man. And but in order to do that, you gotta, for the sake of momentum, you got to be able to let go of that past.
Yeah, I think the biggest resistance, especially for men, that they have is the fact that they're unwilling to accept the grieving process. They're unwilling to
Mhm.
accept that I'm upset, I'm mad, I'm sad, I feel hurt. Like, we're unwilling to accept that we actually have these emotions, and so we resist it and try to stuff it down, and then that becomes the block to the next thing. It becomes a hindrance to releasing the old thing to get to the new thing. If we could just stop and accept, like, I'm grieving, I'm sad, I'm upset, like I'm feeling these things, and it's the acceptance of that that allows it to go through. It's a lot. It allows you to process. When we don't accept it, we resist it, then we're just holding on to those things. It's like holding on to that anger or holding on to that hatred. You're just holding it on, and it turns into poison. It turns toxic inside you. So understanding the transitions and the changes of life, knowing that every phase has four stages, is like being in school, first grade, second grade, fourth grade. High school is freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. You get up into college, same thing. And there's always these stages that we go through with anything. You're unconsciously incompetent. You don't know what you don't know. Then you find out, somebody says, hey, you didn't know this. Oh, I didn't know that. And now you're in this learning stage of conscious competence of, I've got to think about these things and be conscious of it until it becomes a skill, until it becomes muscle memory, until it becomes part of me. And usually right about the time you get to the skill set where you put your 10,000 hours in, now you're the master. Now you put all the time and energy into to get that skill to becoming unconscious competence, or conscious competence. Like, it's now muscle memory. You don't have to think about it. You just got it. Right about that time is usually when you go back. It's like you get all the way up to fifth, sixth gear, there's a stoplight. Now you got to gear down. You got to get back to first gear to start all over again. That's how life works. But we're in such resistance to that. We want to be in flow, but flow is not, it's just like balance. Balance is not being static, being static means you're stopped. You're not doing anything. Balance is a constant adjustment. If you stand on one foot, you can feel that foot just constantly adjusting. It's the same thing in life. You're constantly moving and adjusting. And that's what flow really is. It's kind of can sometimes be like the waves, a sine wave. It's up and down. So you got the highs and the troughs, but just like that, little stupid science experiment, you can put a metal ball on just a slope, just on a grade, and then one next to it that's in the sine wave kind of thing. And the one in the sine wave goes faster because those ups and downs create momentum. And that's how life is. We
Yeah.
need those ups and downs to create that momentum.
And you got to realize that at some point, your ceiling, you should have the mindset, I guess you can say, to not be satisfied with being stagnant. Like we should be we should have a growth mindset, meaning I want to continue to evolve. I want to continue to develop. I want to continue to whatever that is. Now, physically, okay, there's a point where our bodies, diminishing return. The older we get, generally speaking, the less we can do physically. And to some degree mentally and all that kind of stuff. But wherever you are in life, it's like, how can I continue to be the best and do the best and not be satisfied with where I am? And where I'm going with that is, in that is the acceptance that my ceiling should at some point be my floor. And so when I max out where I am now, and maybe you can use a gym metaphor. When I max out at whatever weight, if I'm on the bench and I max out at 150, okay, I can just keep going back to the gym and say, okay, well, I know I can do 150. So, all right. So then my set is going to be, 130, set of 130, set of 140, set of 150. And if that's your norm, okay, cool. But at some point, don't you want to put 160 up? And if you want to put 160 up, then you got to recognize that 150 is no longer a ceiling. It's a floor. It's where you begin. So maybe your set becomes 140, then 150, then 160. And we have to have that kind of mindset as men, just for the sake of growth. Because otherwise, man, we'll seek comfort. Otherwise, man, we'll seek the couch. We'll seek everything the world wants to give us to dumb us down. Now, I'm a complete football fan, and I'm happy that it's football season again. As we record this, University of Colorado is about to play their first game here in about a half hour, and I'm gonna go watch it. So I'm all about that. But at the same time, I realize that there have been seasons in my life where, I allowed myself to become the laziest form of myself every weekend by literally just sitting around being entertained by, multimillionaires running into each other. And entertainment is great. Like I said, I'm a football fan. But when we see comfort and entertainment, this actually goes back to a lot of stuff that Adam talks about. When we see comfort and entertainment, then we're not sharp anymore, man. We're not, so we need to get to the point where we're not comfortable where we are, and we got to be willing to push ourselves. And in order to push ourselves, we got to be willing to transition from our ceiling to the floor.
Yeah, it's something that we as men need to really adopt again, is just the fact of the stages of life, and know that it's not a bad thing that you want to. I mean, when we were talking to Grandmaster Chris Nasky, I mean, his whole, you start off as a white belt, you go through all the belts to become a black belt, and then you start going through the different degrees of black belt. And the first 3 degrees is an instructor. This was it. The second 3 degrees is now you're like running a school. You're like, whatnot. And then you get to his 8th degree status, where now he's like the coach of the coaches. You want to go from amateur or apprentice to journeyman to master to sage to the wise old man, to the one who can, has all the experience. But when we try to resist the transition, when we try to resist the stages, when we try to resist turning our ceilings into floors and continuing to move up, then we don't step into those different stages. And so, yeah, it's scary, but there's a purpose behind it. Everything you're going through is a seed for something else. Every ending is a new beginning, and all of these things that you've gone through, and we talk about it so much, your pain can be your passion. Your pain can become your purpose. Your past can become your gift to the world. But if you don't go through those stages, if you don't, accept, heal, and grow and learn from everything you're going through, all the transitions, all the changes, all the traumas, all the things, then you don't become the wise old man. You don't become the sage. You don't become somebody who has something to give to the generation before you. And it's something I think, especially in our young, what is it, the youngest culture or whatever, like everybody wants to stay young. They want to put needles in their face and get surgeries so they can stay looking young instead of embracing that the fact that you're getting older means now you're becoming an elder. Now you're becoming the wise one. Now you can become the shaman. You can become the chief. You can become the one who has been through it all and they can now support and guide those before them and younger than them. But we're in such resistance, especially because a lot of what Hollywood and society says, oh no, youth is king and stay young. Well, for a lot of us, especially once you get to a point where you're accepting yourself, you've done the work, and you've gotten to this place of enjoying the changes and the transition, you probably wouldn't want to go back to teens or 20s. I mean, once you get through that, it's like, I'm good. I don't need to go back to all that confusion and craziness and hormones and not understanding the world. Like, you get to a certain point, it kind of smooths out. If it gets crazy, it's probably because you're like, I'm bored. Let's make it crazy. But I don't need it to be that way. I don't need that much excitement in my life because at this point, I'm pretty good with keeping it copacetic and going with the flow.
Yeah. I had the opportunity last year to sit with somebody that I considered to be a mentor of mine, somebody I really looked up to and respected. Um, to sit next to him in a hospice room. Um, and I got to visit him a couple times while he was there before he passed away. But just to sit there in that moment, and he had a couple week period of the final transition. um, most people don't check out of hospice, right? At least standing. Um, and so just to be in a space of like, man, ultimately, you know as men, we should live a life where even in the end, a, our lives are a continual transition to the point where we do keep moving up that ladder of resource, where we become more resources, to the people around us, to kids, to the next generation, to all these other kind of things, and see our lives as basically just a continuation, a continuum of transition to the next level, to the next level, to the next level, such that in the end, we can say we made a difference. We made a difference in one person's life or many people's lives because of the life that we live, because of the way that we manage transition. So I'll leave mine at that.
Yeah. Yeah, and even to that point, even once we come to the end of this physical life, it's still just the beginning of a new thing. And if you think that you don't have some sort of say in each of your lives, and it's one of the things I teach quite a bit and talk about quite a bit, is that you chose a lot of the things that you went through because you wanted to have that experience, and a lot of that was probably related to a past life and another incarnation. Because once you leave the body, you're going to have a panoramic life review. You're going to see all the impact on all the people that you knew and didn't know. You're going to see how they felt in your presence and how the interactions went. So you get to see both sides of it. And then once you get through that whole panoramic life review, then you go, okay, this is what I take away from it. This is what I learned. Now, what is my next experience? What is the next, you know, ceiling of that I want to make a floor? What is the next thing that I want to experience in this next life and in this next incarnation? And so it never ends. It's one of the things I've heard several times from a lot of the spiritual teachers. Like it never ends. You can't get it wrong. You're always going to be in transition. You're always going to be changing, and that's the point. It's all about experience and change and growth and moving up levels. Because at some point, we all want to
Yeah,
become the ascended masters. We want to become like you know, to step into our Christ consciousness and become that guy. And that's probably going to take 100 different lifetimes or something. But
yeah,
that is it's never ending.
yeah. And whatever your perspective or outlook is on spiritual things, um, this journey that we have here in this life as we know it, um, one of the things we need to accept is that we are going to be in continual transition, and we are going to be in continual journey. And yeah, as you get older, your body ain't gonna be like it was. Stuff's gonna hurt, stuff's gonna break. You're gonna need, this and that and all those kinds of things. And part of that is just a continual journey of transition through this life. And so we ought not fight it. We ought accept the fact that it's part of the journey, and we ought to do our best to grieve what was, and do our best to anticipate or be excited about what is coming, and that's just part of this life that we live.
Yeah, if you want a quick takeaway for changes in life and transition, the more excited you can be about what's coming next, the easier that transition is going to be. The more you resist it, the more you don't grieve it, the more you judge it, the harder you're making it on yourself. So if you can be more childlike and not childish, but childlike in excitement and wonder and innocence, the transitions of life will just be another fun little whoop, just like a roller
Yeah.
coaster. You got to go up and come down. So it's up to you. We're here to love
Mhm.
you. Make sure you like and subscribe. Tell us how much you love us in the comments. And until next time, we as the Madmen, we are out. Peace.